So as you stand in the grass, there will be a time when you just actually start to feel warmth from the earth. It's just, you think about the connection with the earth and your body. So I'd like to invite you just to help me do the territory acknowledgement today. Can anybody tell me on which people's territory you think stands?
Unceded territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples and the Saanich peoples.
Yeah, great. So the Saanich peoples primarily, and then there's 3 other peoples whose historical relationships remain until this day. Can you remember any of those? Yeah, Max?
It's Esquimalt and Songhees, and I forget the last one.
Yeah, Riley already mentioned it. Anyone hear her?
Saanich.
The Saanich. Yeah, that's right. So together we can gratefully and respectfully acknowledge the Lekwungen peoples on whose territory Yuvik stands, and the Esquimalt, Songhees, and Saanich peoples whose relationships remain until this day. So all of us as future PhD educators, it's just thinking this question, like how can I and how can we really successfully facilitate conversations and activities around decolonization and Indigenous knowledge revitalization if first from our hearts we don't really understand or are invested in it. So there's different ways that we can do that, and so I've been thinking just in my own personal experience of different issues like racism and how have we been able to break down biases. How do we do that? Does anybody have any general ideas of how we can do that personally? Yeah, Max?
I find that having like open and safe discussions around it is really useful for me, because there's things that I just haven't been exposed to or don't understand in a way that maybe I should.
Yeah.
And so discussing it helps me to like recognize where my shortcomings are and where I can develop my mindset and kind of grow.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully that can happen today for us, and thanks to this course. Yeah.
Sort of give a quick example. I was in a Calculus 12 math class yesterday, or 2 days ago, and the teacher has a student there from Iran whose English isn't perfect. He's doing calculus math, grade 12, and he was struggling a little bit, and he said to the kid, "So how many languages do you have?" "Oh, probably 3, maybe 4.
Yeah.
And then he turned to the rest of the class, and and I can't remember his name, or I just call him Yan here. When he's struggling and you get irritable, that's because he has 3 languages more than you have that he's working with all the time. Isn't that amazing? And maybe we should start using Persian here to speak, right? How we would struggle. So appreciate where he's coming from.
Yeah, amazing. So understanding, discussion. Anybody else have anything you want to add? Yeah.
I would just say, like, set yourself up with a diverse network as much as you can, and have that as a goal to hear different perspectives.
Yeah, amazing. So that's kind of plays into something in my own experience, just connection. Like I feel like if we have any biases, if we form meaningful connections with that community of people, it really helps to break down those biases and gives birth to a real respect. So yeah, in all of our experiences, I think we could probably think of times like that. For me, I did a field school in China for like history and culture, and that was like super interesting just to learn the historical ways of the Chinese people and their culture and ways of thinking that really helped me understand as a whole. I lived in Vietnam for a while. One of my best friends is Korean, and I dated a man who was from Syria. So those personal connections have really opened my mind and helped me like break down biases. But with so much conversation around Indigenous knowledge revitalization, I feel like I'm lacking so much. So this December I was thinking about the new year and thinking what can I do? How can I learn? And I set the intention, like maybe I can take some cultural safety training. But 2 weeks later, I had a phone call from the Say Out First Nation, just inviting me to come to their self-care day as a reflexology therapist. So as an RCRT, I was so honored to be invited to go there. And so that connection has started happening for me, and I'm really grateful to Dr. Hoffer and Riley for bringing this up, because it's just really something I want to learn. So I think just individually as a group, I think we can just take a minute to reflect. If you would like, just you can close your eyes so you just can concentrate, reflect, and think about what am I doing right now to help break down the biases that I have, and what am I doing to just encourage and deepen my understanding about Indigenous revitalization of knowledge. So just take a minute. So you can just think of one thing concrete in your mind and just picture it. And then take note about how you feel. How do your feet feel? How does your body feel? Do you feel connected to the earth in this way? This is a grounding technique, and on the First Nations Health Authority website, they do have a page on grounding. This exercise isn't on there, but there's different things that are, like just simple breathing techniques. You can take 3 deep breaths. We can do that. Another one. And a traditional way for grounding is smudging. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's something that you can look into. That's on their website too. So now I just want to invite you to go inside, and we're going to open up a Padlet and just think about different ways that I can facilitate my own learning, each of us individually, of Indigenous knowledge revitalization. Okay, so you can feel free to go inside. Put your shoes back on. Just a side note about one way that biases are be eliminated or helped. There's a language study that I read about Palestine, and in Palestine there were Hebrew children in the experimental group were taught Arabic from a young age and all through school, and then the control group were not taught Arabic. So they're Hebrew-speaking children. And then at the end of their high school year, they did a very in-depth study on the attitudes of those Hebrew children in experimental and control groups, about their attitudes towards Islamic Palestinians, and the results were quite staggering. So even just through language, you can break down biases, and so I really appreciate learning some of the Indigenous words.
I think it's a great connection, because Lorna, by giving me permission to use those words, also created space for me to invite you to do what you've just done in thinking how language affects our relationship to others.
Yeah.
And in the case of Lynelle, the relation to the land, where the words come from the land, we connect to the land. So it's a very powerful way of rethinking how we think.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So just thank you very much, Lynelle. I just want to introduce